NAD is converted to reduced NAD, which will enter the electron transport chain with the loss of 2 moles of ATP. You get that plus 2 moles of ATP. And then here another set, another ATP is produced, another plus 2 moles, that they managed to there. And then in the whole system, you get a net of 2 ATP and reduced NADs, which will enter the electron transport chain. So the reduced NAD here is needed for the electron transport chain to convert ultimately into water and oxygen plus energy. Now, in the absence of oxygen, lactic acid is produced, but in the presence of oxygen and necessarily coenzymes, okay, it is converted to pyruvate. Without the coenzymes and the enzymes, it will not be converted. Okay? Glycolysis. When the aerobic metabolism sequence is operational, the anaerobic stage of metabolism produces pyruvate from glucose. But you cannot produce pyruvate without the coenzyme. And pyruvate is then oxidized to acetyl coenzyme A, which enters the Krebs cycle, a 9-step cycle. So what do you see here? Now this is called the cyclic cycle devised by Hans Krebs. The primary task of the Krebs cycle is to produce reduced NAD and reduced fat, okay, as feed for the respiratory chain along with the release of the carbons as carbon dioxide. It also produces key biochemical feedstocks required for further synthesis of a wide variety of biochemical essential for cellular formation function. In the fourth step, alpha-ketoglutarate, 16 essential biochemicals are produced, and in the ninth step, 8 essential biochemicals or non-essential amino acids. That means if the Krebs cycle operates, everything that you need to produce in the body, enzymes, hormones, antibodies, stem cells enhancer will be produced. You need all the proteins needed, all the amino acids. So look at this. Fourth step, 16 essential biochemicals, and ninth step, 8 essential biochemicals. Look at this. Amino acids. Amino acids are organic compounds that combine to form proteins. When proteins are digested, amino acids are left. The human body requires 22 amino acids to grow and break down food, but only 14 can be produced within the body. That's why they are called non-essential. We can copy them. Whereas the other 9 essential amino acids must be obtained from the diet. We want to discuss early in the morning. So what are the non-essentials you have there? And these are the essentials. Okay, all of them are 8, and they become 9 when for babies, children. Okay. So the amino acids that are produced now are precursors of what? Purines and pyrimidines. So they are important for the production of DNA, RNA, and you use coenzyme. As I said, if you don't produce normal DNA, you get cancer. You can repair. Sphingosine comes from serine sphingolipid. Histamine, a powerful vasodilator, is derived from histidine. Tyrosine is a precursor of the hormone thyroxine. Epinephrine and melanin, and tryptophan is a precursor of the neurotransmitter serotonin, and nicotinamide ring of NAD. Glutamine, cysteine, and lysine are precursors of glutathione. Arginine is a precursor of nitric oxide. Glycine and succinyl coenzymases are involved in the biosynthesis of heme and chlorophylls, and alanine and histidine are the precursors of carnosine. A complete protein is one that contains all of the essential amino acids in quantities sufficient for growth and repair of stem cells and body tissues. Most proteins from animal sources contain not only the essential amino acid but also some of the non-essential as well. Thus are considered complete protein. Protein, like mast cells, enzymes, antibodies, collagen, cytokines, etc., can be synthesized if one amino acid, whether essential or non-essential, is missing. Cytokines, like interleukin-3 and body's growth factors essential for stem cell replication and differentiation, cannot be made if one essential amino acid is missing, or one amino acid. If the Krebs cycle stops moving, all the non-essential amino acids can be synthesized, thus they become essential. Or if the Krebs cycle stops moving, you cannot produce stem cell. You cannot enhance stem cell differentiation. You like to enhance stem cells, you like to produce stem cells, you like them to replicate, multiply, you like them to differentiate, you must move the Krebs cycle. If the Krebs cycle comes to a halt, what will happen? So that's the Krebs cycle. Okay, from pyruvate, okay, lactic acid becomes pyruvate and then enters the acid Krebs cycle. First acetylcoenzyme and the ninth step, okay, and from there you have substrates that will be needed in the electron transport chain. And step 4 and step 9, you produce a lot of substrates needed for stem cell production. Tricarboxylic cycle says here, or the Krebs cycle, or more really the Zen-Georgi-Krebs cycle, is a series of enzyme-catalyzed chemical reactions which is of central importance in all living cells that use oxygen as part of cellular respiration. Each step in the 9-step sequence requires its own special enzymes, both to catalyze the reaction as well as those that control the rate of each reaction so that they operate in coordinated manner. Removal of an essential enzyme or damaged genes essential for the production of different essential enzymes necessary for any one of the steps will cause the entire sequence of aerobic metabolism to shut down, subjecting the cell to too little oxygen, and thus cancer is developed. So you get cancer, but if you move the Krebs cycle, you can produce stem cells and enhance the stem cells. Also, all the biochemical feedstocks produced in each step of the Krebs cycle in turn are needed to produce non-essential amino acids, cysteine, taurine, etc., enzymes, hormones, which together with certain essential amino acids, methionine, tryptophan, and vitamins, niacin, riboflavin, pantothenic, pyridoxine, choline, betaine, etc., in turn are needed for the production of substances like stem cells, needed for the repair and maintenance of muscle and organ tissue, connective tissue, cartilage, and bones, nerve tissues like the myelin sheath, production of neurotransmitters like acetylcholine, dopamine, GABA, adrenaline, production of antibodies against virus, bacteria, fungi, and parasites, and the production of antioxidant system, glutathione peroxidase, superoxide dismutase, catalase, thioredoxin, carnosine, etc. Okay? This is the respiratory chain. It's about the 4th step, having the 5th step. Okay? The respiratory chain consists of 4 enzyme complexes here, 1 to 4, and the 2 intermediary substrates, coenzyme Q and cytochrome. Okay? With the production of NAD, H, reduced NAD, and fat H produced by the intermediate metabolism are oxidized further by the mitochondrial respiratory gene to establish an electrochemical gradient of protons, which is finally used by ATP synthase to produce adenosine triphosphate. Ultimately, you produce your energy. And that's the electron transport chain presented by Warburg. The respiratory chain. Any defect in the mitochondrial respiratory chain can cause disorders in the muscles, the brain, and nerves, because these cells use more energy than most in the body. According to Kieron Messel, PhD, Group Leader, Chemistry Division of Edison Pharmaceuticals, 2008, an estimate of more than 50% of those diagnosed with mitochondrial diseases do not have an inherited genetic defect. That means some what they call genetic defect can be repaired by just moving the respiratory chain. It implies that the energy is ultimately derived from mitochondrial oxidative phosphorylation is produced via a linear arrangement of discrete electron transport complexes. Mitochondria as important cellular organelles was only realized in the mid-1900s due to the function as the centers of respiration. And the dynamic nature of mitochondria is modulated by a myriad of regulatory circuits, and any dysfunction in its dynamics and biogenesis may contribute to the numerous inherited and acquired diseases. So all of these are sickness that can occur if the electron transport chain of Warburg does not operate. Nervous system, tissues, tremors, developmental delays, deafness, dementia, stroke before age 40, poor balance, problems with peripheral nerves. Heart, the heart will weaken, cardiomyopathy, heart failure, conduction block. Liver, liver failure, uncommon except in babies with mitochondrial DNA depletion, and kidneys, Fanconi syndrome, loss of essential metabolites in urine. And eyes, drooping eyelids, ptosis, inability to move eyes from side to side, external ophthalmoplegia, blindness, retinitis pigmentosa. Skeletal muscle, muscle weakness, exercise tolerance cramps, digestive tract, acid reflux, vomiting, chronic diarrhea, intestinal obstruction, pancreas, diabetes. If the respiratory chain works, almost all of this can be solved. The following chemical compounds found in RCB could affect the dynamic nature of mitochondria through modulation of its various regulatory circuits. Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, flavin adenine dinucleotide 5, flavin mononucleotide, ubiquinone, CoQ10, and cytochromos. These chemical compounds are usually found in milk, liver, and red meats of ruminants. Ubiquinone is most abundant in cholesterol-rich food like egg. But since everybody is rebelling against cholesterol-rich food, there is a problem in the Krebs cycle and electron transport. It does not work anymore. It cannot help. So the result, you get a lot of diseases. You cannot control diseases, you get a lot of cancer. Inadequate intake of eggs, milk, and red meats of ruminants can lead to deficiency of the chemical compounds necessary to modulate the electron transport chain. A redox reaction that transfers electrons from an electron donor to an electron acceptor. Inhibitors. So what will inhibit the electron transport chain? Inhibitors of oxidative phosphorylation are certain antibiotics. Pyrisidine, actinomycin A, cyanide, amygdalin or latril, B17, cyanogen, grapeseed oil, because it leads to production of cyanide. Barbiturates, sodium amytal, and cholesterol-lowering drug statin, because they block CoQ10 production. That's why if you take cholesterol drugs, you die of heart failure. But I discussed that in the morning, right? So they inhibit the electron transport chain. How does RCB cell-reversing operates? RCB enhances the second stage of energy production, Krebs cycle or citric acid, cycle of Hansfeld, and the third stage, the electron transport chain or respiratory chain of Otto Warburg. All of these are German contributions. Wilhelm Schuller introduced the major minerals which are needed for the Krebs cycles to move. But he used only major minerals, calcium, magnesium, potassium. But minor minerals, enzymes, cofactors, and coenzymes are needed to fully empower the Krebs cycles. And the electron transport chain or respiratory chain, that is Otto Warburg's contribution. Thus, combining the scientific contribution of the three German doctors, Wilhelm Schuller, Otto Warburg, and Hans Krebs, the result is rapid cellular balancing. RCB is able to exponentially speed up repair due to its stem cell enhancing capability. Look at this lady. Multiple sclerosis. For almost 7 years, she was being treated by Makati Medical Center. All in all, he has to go there. When I say multiple sclerosis, the nerve sheath is destroyed and the conduction is very, very slow. Instead of 70 kilometers per hour, it becomes only 1 kilometer per hour. So she could hardly walk, unstable, imbalanced, and her vision is so poor she could hardly see. In 2007, she became very serious. She was brought to the Makati Medical Center under the care of a neurologist, and from the Makati Medical straight to my clinic. 7 years, sick of multiple sclerosis. Now look at her. That was her picture when she was brought to my clinic. Within 1 month, she was walking. Until now, that was 2008. Now look at the difference. You know, you have stem cells in the skin. If you enhance the stem cells, you can regenerate damaged skin and you look younger. So look at her after 1 month and you look at her now within 1 to 2 years. Social. But what is important is she's walking. The condition is gone with the wind. You know the meaning of Gone with the Wind?
Yes.
That's from the movie by Rex. Have you? Alam mo ba yun? Scarlett O'Hara and Rex Butler. Pasensya na yung mga hindi pinanganak ng 1940s. Okay, this is another case. This is suffering from motor neuron disease.